minutes, have people slowly start rolling in. While we do, I'm Julian. Been here at Scotchy Flights for a while now. Done a few of these Facebook Lives. With me, we have Daniel. Daniel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Certainly, Daniel. I'm member operations. I'm writing up your deals. You might have seen something from Hawaii today, which is always exciting.
Yeah. Can you actually go into that deal a little more? That deal was I'm a fan. I liked it.
Yeah, we've got some real crazy stuff from Hawaii, because I don't know if you saw the one yesterday where there's these new nonstop flights on Hawaiian Airlines from Orlando and Austin, first of all. So that was what kicked it off last night late. And today, then, there was just this big old mess of $200 fares from the East Coast, from New York, even from DC, and then 300s all over the country. And that's mostly connecting through California. So most of these are going straight across to Los Angeles, then into Honolulu, but also to most of the other smaller islands as well. So, great availability on those. Happy to see them.
Yeah, that's amazing. Always love when Hawaii deals come through. I mean, I feel like it's always just kind of exciting when we do have one. We're getting a few comments here. Thank you everyone for joining. Just a reminder, I'm Julian. Joining me this week is Daniel. Matt said it right. That doesn't look like Scott. Unfortunately, we are both not Scott, but striving. We'll get there one day, Daniel. We'll get there one day. As Scott's tradition, and we'll continue it, the first person to post a question, we will answer. So please drop your questions, any travel questions you have, in the comments, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. We do have a question here from Kathy, and she asks, how do I get from Detroit to Uganda, then back home from Tanzania at the best price? Daniel, any thoughts there? I feel like you, out of all people here, you might have some of the better thoughts here.
Well, it strikes me that the open jaw part's not too hard. So I think booking an open jaw flight into Uganda back from Tanzania, probably not a big deal. This sounds like it would almost certainly be an Air France itinerary to me. I don't know if you agree on that, because we get a lot of Air France flights transiting in Paris that kind of go to that part of Africa. It kind of depends on when you're going. I would say be somewhat flexible. It's interesting because we see a lot of flights to Nairobi all the time. That's a much easier one, not quite where you're going. So I think what I would do first of all is I would say, well, how hard is it to get to Nairobi? Would the local short haul flight be easier than trying to do the open jaw? And I would make sure that you're looking at your biggest nearby hub, because for me, and I'm in Indiana right now, that's just not going to happen easily out of Indianapolis, but out of Chicago, it probably would. So, definitely look to your hubs that have that one-stop connection through Europe. I think that'll help you a lot.
Yeah, I feel like especially with, I think that could be the theme for a lot of our answers for these types of questions is look at these hub airlines that connect through and make either cheaper flights or cheaper deals or just easier routes and easier itineraries there. Melanie says hello from Arizona. Hello, thanks for joining. Thanks for hopping on. Brian asks, hey Brian, will flights for next summer to Italy/Greece go back down from their current $900 price range? So that's an interesting question, because not only is it Italy, Greece, but it's going to be summer pricing too. Daniel, what are your thoughts?
I think we will see that. We've seen some astonishingly good Greece fares this year already, and I think it'll be back even if it's not here like this week. I would think that there will be at least one or two more chances before the summer, depending on where you're leaving from. So I would keep an eye out. I think it's one of these things of how flexible are your dates in the summer too. So like if you said, oh, I got to go to a wedding on July 24th or something like that, then I would say I would kind of jump on the first thing that's available to you. But on the other hand, if you said, well, I'm just going sometime between June and August, and it doesn't matter exactly when, that's the sort of thing where I'd wait and see at least another 2 or 3 months. Like there'll be something for sure. I think it's weird to say I think Greece more than Italy, actually.
That is weird. Yeah.
Usually it'd be the opposite, but the Greece
completely
been so much better lately. And I think that may just be partially due to lockdowns in Italy. I think a lot of the commercial service was not coming back. Whereas with Greece, you tend to fly in on airlines like Qatar or Turkish or something like that have been operating continuously throughout the entire pandemic.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you bring up a few good points there. I think flexibility, like you said, is the number one thing. You're right. If there's specific dates, maybe that first deal, hop on that and see how that goes. But I will say, I don't, Daniel. I'd want to get your thoughts too. I don't think the peak summer prices for next year are going to mirror or be similar to what we're seeing for this year.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely, I mean, like you said, I think the deals will still be there, and we probably will see a few, Italy or Greece deals for peak summer, but it won't be as appetizing as we've seen for this year. What do you
I
think?
think, yeah, although I think what may end up happening is I think you might be surprised that you can get a little more last minute availability than normal, would be my guess still. Like, I think that they'll be slower to fill up than they would normally be. Because I think normally, if we were saying if this was 2018, looking at summer 2019, those planes started to fill in January, and after January, like there's usually not much for the following
Right.
summer. I think
Yeah.
I think this year there might be because I think the airline schedule as they have filed it will change.
Hmm.
Capacity is very unpredictable, so they don't know what they're doing honestly on the airline supply side. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, so I think everything Julian said is right. Although there might be some weird, more last minute than usual opportunities. Not actually
Yeah.
last minute, but like you might even see something in March, which would be pretty rare normally.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we usually give a range of, best time to search for flights, 6 to 8 months, 2 to 8 months at some points, depending on destination. And I think for sure that range is going to change even more in the coming months, like what Daniel said, based off all of these changes that we're going through right now. Katie says, "Where are you going in 2021?" Daniel, where are you going in 2021?
Well, I'll tell you a cool thing that I just did about 15 minutes ago when I was probably supposed to be doing something else.
I
So
won't tell. Don't worry.
this is a mileage booking I'm planning to make. So one of the things that's kind of interesting for me is my wife is Vietnamese, so it's difficult for her to get visas to some certain countries. And but interestingly, one of the regions was very easy for both of us to travel to together is the Caribbean. So something really cool that you can do in the Caribbean is British Airways flies all these flights to various islands from London, but most of those have a tag destination. So they'll fly like nonstop from London to Turks and Caicos, and then that flight will actually continue on to Antigua. And there's a lot of flights like this. So what you can actually do is you can fly on a big British Airways 777 plane in the Caribbean from island to island and go island hopping. And if you redeem those very short flights with miles, you can fly business class, first class, super cheap. It's like, in some cases, like 6,000 to 8,000 avios one way, something like that. You pay taxes. It's not bad. This is booking through Iberia avios, not British Airways avios, because you can save on taxes and fees that way. So we're going to do this circular island hopping trip through the Caribbean next fall. Kind of planning to do that next October, hopefully.
There you go. Are there any specific destinations on that trip that you're more excited for than others?
I know so little about the Caribbean because what we're probably going to do is we'll go probably Turks and Caicos, Antigua, Trinidad, St. Lucia, Grenada, and back to the U.S. from there. So
there you go. What a trip!
Yeah, I mean it's a bit of a whistle stop. So I need to figure out like how long it will take to do that. How long you want to stay in these places. No, I'm excited about the whole thing. It's just a region of the world that I've spent so little time in. It's one of those places that's kind of easy to get to from the U.S., but at the same time, I don't think about doing it. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's true. I think that's a good point. And if anyone has been to any of these places that Daniel just talked about, please drop some recommendations for him in the comments. I'm sure he will appreciate it. For me, 2021, I mean, I think I go back to my go-tos. I think I'm going to stick domestic for my first trip just because, I don't know. That's just what I'm feeling. So either Florida beaches or San Diego. I think those two are up there. Austin is up there. I've actually never been. So if anyone's been to Austin, which apparently like almost everyone has from everyone I talk to, leave some recs there too for when I'm finally able to head to Austin. Cynthia says, "Hey everyone." Hi Cynthia. Thanks for hopping on. Thanks for joining. Barbara asks, what about getting into Hawaii from the COVID restriction?
This is true.
Daniel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is something definitely to plan around because basically right now you do have to get a test in advance. They post these preferred partners online that you can basically do an at-home test about 3 days before you leave. And some people have definitely had trouble getting the test done on time. So, it's not something that I've personally looked at in terms of which I wouldn't want to recommend a provider, for these exams. But it's something I would definitely plan around and push that flight back as far as you can. It's probably not somewhere I would go this month, but it's somewhere I'd consider going in April, as things start to normalize, as a lot of these rules start to settle down.
Nice. Just for everyone joining us now, welcome to our weekly Scott Sheep Flights Facebook Live. As I've said, I'm Julian. Thanks for joining us. I'm joined here by one of our senior flight experts, Daniel. So a lot of the deals that you're getting in your emails have been sent from Daniel himself. So just a cool little fact there. Melanie asks, what is the best way to get to the Maldives from Arizona?
What I would do is I would try and get to, I would do this as like a 2-in-1, either from a place like Singapore or like India, possibly, because I think that's something we do see is you'll get some pretty good flights in Southeast Asia from Phoenix, and or even if you went to LA or something like that, you get it even cheaper probably. Yeah. So I would say like fly to Singapore or Bangkok or something like that, and stay for a couple days, acclimate so you're not jet lagged, and then hop a regional flight from there. It can be pretty cheap. A lot of that's not, there's a little bit less capacity from Southeast Asia to the Maldives right now because of COVID. I think if you're looking for next year, though, that'll start to come back. The schedule will start to normalize and there'll be more seats available. So I think that'd probably be your dirt cheapest way. If you didn't want to do that, because it's always expensive to fly directly to the Maldives from the U.S., but I would think that probably I would go to like Los Angeles and fly Qatar, have a stopover in Doha, and go from there. So that would probably objectively cost a bit more, but it would be more direct if you just wanted to go straight there and then come back. Would probably be an interesting alternative.
Yeah, I just took a quick look. I think of a lot of our past deals that we've sent, it does seem like a lot of them have been out of LAX. So definitely one way that I would consider is getting a domestic flight from Arizona to LAX, maybe spending a few days there, get some in and out. Although I'm assuming they have in and out in Arizona too. So,
yeah, actually, the last
I could be wrong.
That was in Phoenix several months ago. So
there you go. But yeah, hitting up LAX and then possibly seeing what the deals look like from out of LAX. So that's an option as well. But similar to what Daniel said, if you can go the Singapore route, always looking forward to experiencing more countries during one trip. So
you can often get some pretty cool regional business class upgrades on those too, because I used to live in Singapore. I've mentioned that before. Flying from Singapore to the Maldives with Sri Lankan Airlines, generally very cheap, open business class availability. So buy an economy class ticket, do a paid upgrade when you check in or bid on that. It's like a couple $100 business class extra. It's pretty nice.
There you go. Yeah, always worth checking out there. So that's a good tip, hot tip. Calvin says, I've forgotten. I've had to cancel 2 trips to Europe this year on British Airways. Sorry to hear that, Calvin. Do I have to use my flight credit by the end of this year, booking as far into 2022? That's funny because I feel like a lot of people have forgotten maybe a few flight credits that they have. I know. Like just 2 weeks ago, I'm like, oh yeah, I had to cancel a flight to Portugal in March. What seems like 5 years ago at this point. So I share that sentiment, Calvin. But the question, Daniel, is do I have to use my flight credit by the end of this year, booking as far into 2022?
It probably depends on when it was issued, because generally the credits that are being issued now or in the last several months, you have a lot more time, so you don't have to book right now. You could probably book until late next year. But if you did have one of the very early credits that was issued probably like before April, some of those are much more restricted in terms of when you need to book. So it should say on there. But I would assume that if it was issued in the last 6 months, probably you're not in that much of a rush. But if you got it very early in the crisis, then you might need to.
Yeah, that's why I remembered my canceled flight in March, because I was like, oh yeah, I feel like that's a thing that's a thing that I have to remember to use. So speaking of that though, Daniel, Delta updated or extended their waived change fees. I can never figure that out. It's been what, a year now? But yeah, so can you tell us a little more about that, Daniel, along with what other airlines may be doing?
Yeah, this is pretty cool. So, something we talked about, we actually talked about it on one of these several weeks ago. So, most of the American carriers have waived change fees for regular economy tickets within North America. So, like to Canada, Mexico, domestically, mostly to Latin America. So that was really cool when that happened. They generally weren't doing that for long haul international itineraries. So if you're going to Europe or something like that, you wouldn't be able to unless you bought an expensive refundable ticket. So Delta has now said that's no longer the case. They're going to expand these policies out to their whole network. It seems like United is going to. I've been seeing some stuff on Twitter, like they're making the correct PR noises to say that they're going to match this policy to some extent. The details of what United are going to do have not been released yet, but we should hear probably in the next few days. But something else that's cool about Delta too is that it appears to also be valid for partner itineraries too. So if you were flying Air France or KLM or something like that, you would also be eligible for these policies if you book through Delta. So if that's actually true and that's easy to do, that's a real win as well. Because a lot of the stuff that we send out, especially for Europe, you can actually choose who you book through. You can book through Air France or KLM or Delta, or you have a lot of choices. So that could be an interesting layer of protection, even if you're flying with other SkyTeam airlines in the future.
Yeah. Question for a senior flight expert: will there ever be a flight deal to the Maldives?
Oh, I think there have been for sure. I mean, from time to time, it's just one of those ones that's not very common. If any time there would be one, probably in the next 6 months, I would think, because what I imagine is going to happen is that a lot of just connecting flights are not operating right now. So there's very low seat capacity to a lot of destinations. But as that starts to come back, and bookings haven't caught up with the expanding airline schedules, I think we might see some kind of weird stuff like that. Which is why we had a big French Polynesia deal recently. Out to Tahiti. I think that was very similar in many respects. So I think there will be from time to time. You also see the Seychelles as well from time to time, not very commonly, but once in a while, kind of similar Indian Ocean destinations. So I would say yes, but make sure you're following big cities, because I think that's the key. Is like here in my current home airport of Indianapolis, we're out of luck. We're not going to see that most likely unless it's a mistake.
Yeah,
but,
right.
But Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, these kinds of places will. So I think that's the kind of deal. If there was a good flight deal from one of those major cities, it would be worth repositioning for that. It'd be worth saying, I'm gonna book my cheap domestic fare to LAX for this purpose.
Hey, sorry, my headphones completely just died on me. You can still hear me though, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Perfect. That was super weird. Next question from Allison. Hi, Allison. I have very specific dates for an Italian cruise next year. Oh, sorry, I skipped a question. First question from Allison. Are you hearing anything about countries allowing travel exceptions to those who are vaccinated? I'm wondering if there's any chance my trip to Japan in late March may happen.
I think there almost will be travel exceptions in the future, although I haven't heard any of them announced yet. I think we're a little early for that, because I'm sure in time that probably a lot of countries will have some sort of health passport system, and it will de facto be what the policy is. But I think it'll lag behind the reality of people actually getting vaccines, most likely.
Yeah. I would say the same thing. I just got distracted from D. Aline's question. Is Daniel? I thought you were Scott. Who is Scott? Is he the ghost behind SEF? Do tell.
Well, Scott was
I think
here
that is a great question. I mean, maybe he was at this point. Who knows? But yeah, Scott. Well, who is Scott? I think we can just leave it there and see what Scott says himself next week or in 2 weeks. I actually don't know what the schedule is looking like. There was another question that I did want to get to. Cynthia asks, how is it determined from which airports that the deals stem from? In Nashville, there aren't a lot. So this is kind of a two-parter. The second part, I'll let Daniel answer. The first part is more of a reminder that unfortunately we do not, and I think most people know this. Unfortunately, we do not create the deals. And this is actually what I wanted to follow up with when you were talking about the Maldives. I wish we did. I think that'd be great. I think the deals would be amazing for all of our members. Unfortunately, I think the deals that we set would probably bankrupt the airlines. So not the greatest. But yes, just a reminder that we do not set the deals, but we really want to. Daniel, do you want to go a little more into actually answering that question?
Yeah. So yeah, like Julian said, we'll send what's out there. So a lot of this really comes down to revenue management and what the airlines think that you're willing to pay. So they have basically a sophisticated computer that is, trying to determine what is the maximum price they think they can get to achieve the yield, the number of seats sold that they want to see on their flights. And Nashville is a tricky one because we actually usually see more stuff from Nashville internationally. I think one of the big problems is that cities like Nashville, because normally you get a nonstop flight from London, British Airways, for example, like that hasn't obviously been running for a long time. So mid-tier, I shouldn't say mid-tier, Midwestern cities in particular, like in Indiana where I live, or Tennessee, or whatever, we've seen a lot of service cuts. We're not very well connected internationally right now, so there's very little competition on these routes that are available, and that's less the case for places like JFK and LAX, big hubs. And that trend is always true. It's particularly exacerbated now because there's a much greater capacity disparity, I would say, between smaller airports and bigger airports. Because if you think about going down the food chain a little bit to really small airports, a lot of them have no service at all. It was interesting. Like we joke about this. We occasionally send flights to Cheyenne, Wyoming, which was completely closed, had no commercial service for much of this year at all, simply because it just wasn't worthwhile for a lot of the airlines to service that small airport. So, I think a lot of things that are always true are acutely true now, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I just want to, thank everyone again for joining us. And you guys are dropping a lot of great questions. We're going to try to get to as many of them as possible. But just really, really wanted to say I appreciate everyone for hopping on and dropping some great questions. I don't want to take too much of Daniel's time because once he's off this, he's going to go back to searching out flights and deals for everyone. So obviously we don't want to take up too much of his time, but we'll try to get through a few more here. Allison's second question that I rudely cut off before. She has very specific dates for an Italian cruise next year, November 2021. Would you look for mileage flights, LA to Rome, the second posted, or would you wait for a cheap flight?
I think for next November, I definitely wait. I would look at it kind of the other way around. I would say almost certainly you will find something good between now and then, but you can keep the miles in your quiver in case you don't. But I think for LA to Rome, you'll definitely see something over the next year for sure. I would think you could wait even until next summer for that probably. You'll probably see something before then, but yeah, I think you've got a lot of time.
Yeah. LAX to Rome. And that's kind of going back to what you said, where I just thought it was interesting that you said we're probably going to be seeing more Greece deals than Rome at the moment, and that's just always funny. But yes, we normally do see Rome deals a good amount, especially from our bigger hubs like New York, LA, San Francisco. So, Katie says, I have a trip booked to Iceland from the US at the end of April. Do you think I'll be able to still go? What are your thoughts, Daniel?
I would be cautiously optimistic about April. No guarantees, but I would think it's definitely within the realm of possibility. I think it's not out of the question is what I would say.
Yeah. I think that's the best answer that I'm going to be able to give as well. Timing wise, looking at how everything is going right now. Yeah, I think I would shift to cautiously optimistic rather than just straight pessimistic as the past few months now. But yeah, I would say I agree with you there.
But I would be prepared for some sort of testing or some sort of regulatory as well.
Yeah. There's always going to be something. Dialine says, "Oh, this is this is the question that I think where she realized that you were not Scott." Two comments here. One, in the Caribbean, you will be missing out on Carnival as it is postponed in all Caribbean islands next year. Scott, Daniel, you should go in 2022. So there's one recommendation there.
All right.
But her question is, knowing what you know now about the COVID vaccine update, when in 2021 would you be comfortable starting traveling?
Well, I'll tell you what I have. I have one thing booked other than what we just talked about, and I bought that mistake fare we had to the U.S. Virgin Islands several days ago. So I booked that for the end of May, early June. So for me, I'm kind of saying I'm just not, unless things change a lot, I'm probably not going to book any trips until that time. So for me, I'll kind of give the spring time to clear the air, I suppose. So it's my hope that late May, early June, I'll be out and about a little bit more. But again, I'll kind of keep my options open, book in pencil, not pen, as the saying goes, because I'm ready to say, like, if the conditions on the ground aren't good, I just won't go. I think maybe would be, when would we buy non-refundable travel? I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, I think both things you said there really stuck out to me. Book in pencil, not pen. I love that saying. I don't know why, but it's catchy. I mean, I guess it's made to be catchy, so it makes a lot of sense. And then two, yeah, non-refundable tickets. That's, once the airlines maybe don't start waiving change fees or something, that's going to be a whole different conversation. So we'll see what the airlines end up doing, but also when what everyone else would do. For me, I think probably something similar. Most likely late spring, early summer would be my guess if I really had to put a month out there.
Yeah.
Eva asks, I have a 2-week backpacking trip through France, Italy, and Switzerland. Do you think Americans will be able to travel by July? And then what is the best airline to travel between Switzerland and Spain?
So I would think probably yes on July. I mean, I guess I don't have a better answer for July than for May. Right. But I think most likely, I would think probably by that time. So my answer for getting around in Europe, I love to take the train, even though it's definitely not the most efficient way to do it. But if you want to fly, I would say I don't have a particularly strong loyalty for intra-European airlines. I'm very content to fly Ryanair, EasyJet, or Vueling, any of these budget carriers. Like, I'm very okay with that. So I think if you would say the answer is it worth buying up from the cheapest budget fares to fly like Swissair or Iberia or something like that within Europe? I would say usually not, for me personally. So I would be very content to fly budget and just do that purely based on convenience of, whatever nonstop flight you can get to the specific city you're going to, and, just keep it real cheap.
Yeah. Again, cautiously optimistic, hopefully you didn't break anything there.
my cat is being very naughty with me right now. She's like biting my feet. I'll see if I can get her to come over here, actually.
Got it. Yeah, that'd be great. I was scared you poured water all over your computer or something. And in terms of best airline, I would also have to agree with Daniel. I don't have too much experience there. I would say I've done Ryanair a few times. They've been fine. They've been cheap. And they get you where you need to go. Otherwise, yeah, if you have the time, train is always beautiful. But
especially
it's hard to beat Switzerland there. So yeah, I mean, I think Ryanair for me would be completely fine. Next question. Let's do one or two more. Arturo. Hey, Arturo. Asks, hey guys, relatives from Texas are hoping to fly and meet us near Spain and are hoping there are nearby destinations that may be available soon. Any ideas? Daniel?
Near Spain? Let me think. Because when I think of Europe, I guess it depends on what we're defining as nearby. Because, like, for example, you can go right now from the U.S. to Turkey or several countries in Eastern Europe, like Albania, Serbia, Kosovo, places like that, which were kind of on my list anyway. So that's like kind of near in the sense that it's in Europe, but it's not actually it's not that close. It's still several hours away from Spain. I would think that we might reasonably, though, start to see places like Morocco opening up sooner than the EU. Another interesting thing too that I was reading about, and this might be relevant later if there's a travel corridor to the UK, is that you can very easily get to places like Gibraltar from London. Which that could be a touchy one in Spain, obviously. But
Yeah.
Getting into Gibraltar, if that's something that's an opportunity, might be easier in some cases since it's part of the UK and not totally integrated into the EU as well. So that's a interesting little possibility depending on when you're planning to travel.
Yeah, and I mean, following up with that question, I guess similar question. If you're trying to get into Portugal next summer, any suggestions about the cheapest way to do that from Yvonne?
Well, Portugal is an easy one. We haven't been sending a lot of fares with Tap Portugal lately because they're not refundable. So that's something that you haven't been seeing in a lot of our deal emails, but those are priced very aggressively. So I would think if you're comfortable with non-refundable travel, which I maybe am not quite yet, Tap is always extremely cheap. That'll continue to be a great option into the future. Something really cool you can do with them too is you can fly to the Azores from Boston nonstop.
All right.
So I think that would be a really cool thing. Fly from Boston, Azores, and then on to like Lisbon or Porto or something like that. So that's probably the dirt cheapest option. But there are fairly reasonable fares even with refundable airlines, or like with Fly United or British Airways or something like that. You can get reasonably cheap flights, but not quite as dirt cheap as TAP will be sometimes. So I would say just kind of stick to the usual booking guidelines we have for European flights. Try to book your flight off season. Well, contra seasonal. So now's the time to start looking for next summer. And then I would just say, like, what kind of refundability rules are you primarily interested in having? Because I think realistically, if you were trying to go next August or late summer and you found a really good non-refundable fare, it's one of those things that's probably fine. I would guess. I wouldn't maybe book it, but it's probably fine. Don't quote me on that. But that's there are still some $200 fares to Europe floating around if we're able to take advantage of them.
Right. Cool. Let's finish it off on two comments that we have here. So Michelle says, FYI, we had to cancel DCA to LAX trip on American Airlines because of lockdown. Refund offered in vouchers only. We're ex-platinum with them. Enough vouchers to buy a plane at this point. I think that's a shared sentiment from a lot of people here. I think maybe even just the people watching here if we add up all the flight credits that we have accumulated, I mean, we probably could buy a plane at this point. I have no doubt about that. But sorry to hear about that, Michelle. And then finally, Carl had a comment that I wanted to, that of course I lost now. He said, recognize Robert of your team. Carl, if you're still here, we have two Roberts, so Robert F or Robert R. But he says, didn't realize I was a legacy SEF member, so he actually saved me money from your 5-year policy, but still is a bargain for future members. Great customer service, and I love the referral bonus. So I'm going to go out and assume this was Robert R. Both Roberts are amazing, but yes, we will definitely recognize Robert. Amazing team member of ours, and we're very lucky to have him. But yeah, that's our Facebook Live for this week. I'm really sorry if we weren't able to get to your question. Please keep dropping them. We will also be here next week at our weekly Facebook Live. So we'll try to answer as many questions there as possible. Once again, thank you all so much for hopping on. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, of course. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.